The early church was 100% Jewish. The earliest followers of Jesus weren't Romans. They weren't from Greece. They didn't gather in cathedrals or call themselves Christians. They were Jews. They worshipped in the temple. They prayed facing Jerusalem. They kept the Sabbath. They celebrated the feasts of the Lord. They read the Torah. They studied the prophets. They believed Yeshua was the promised Messiah of Israel. The early church didn't replace Israel. It was Israel, a remnant within the people, not apart from them. So if your version of church has no room for Torah, no connection to Jerusalem, and no memory of its roots, you're not continuing the story. You're rewriting it. This may shock some people, but the earliest followers of Jesus were not Christians. They didn't call themselves that. They didn't wear crosses. They didn't attend cathedrals or follow a new religion. They were Jews, completely, entirely, unapologetically. They prayed in Hebrew. They worshipped in the temple. They kept the Sabbath, not Sunday. They celebrated the appointed feasts, Passover, Shavuot, Sukkot. They read from the Torah. They studied the prophets. They lived in the rhythms of the covenant given to Israel. The early church wasn't a break from Israel. It was Israel, the remnant within her, responding to the promises of God. These early believers didn't reject their Jewish identity when they followed Yeshua. They embraced it more deeply than ever. Many people today believe that Jesus came to start something new, something separate from Judaism, that the church replaced Israel, that the old was cast aside, and something entirely different was born. But history tells a different story. The book of Acts doesn't begin with Christians in Rome. It begins with Jewish disciples in Jerusalem. Peter, James, John, all of them Jews. The first sermons were given in the temple courts. The first miracles happened among the Jewish people. The first controversies about Torah observance. This was not a Roman movement. It was a revival within Israel. And what did these early believers believe? That Yeshua, Jesus, was the Messiah foretold in the scriptures of Israel. They didn't believe he came to start a new religion. They believed he came to fulfill the one they already knew. In Matthew 5:17, Yeshua says clearly, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them." That's not the voice of someone rejecting Israel's story. That's the voice of someone stepping right into the middle of it. These Jewish disciples saw in Yeshua the fulfillment of the covenant with Abraham, the promises to David, the vision of Isaiah, the dreams of Daniel. They didn't abandon Judaism. They proclaimed that the long-awaited hope of Israel had arrived. If you could walk into a gathering of early believers, it would look nothing like what we see today. You wouldn't hear Latin hymns or see stained glass windows. You'd hear Hebrew blessings. You'd see men with tzitzit. You'd smell the unleavened bread of Passover and hear the prayers facing Jerusalem. They met in homes, they broke bread, they read the scriptures, the Tanakh, because the New Testament hadn't been written yet. This was the early church, not detached, not foreign, but fully rooted in the soil of Israel. Over time, the message of Yeshua spread beyond Israel to the nations. This was always part of the plan. Isaiah spoke of a light to the Gentiles. The covenant was meant to bless all peoples. But as the message spread into the Roman Empire, something else happened. Gentile believers began to outnumber Jewish ones, and slowly the identity of the movement started to shift. Jewish customs were seen as strange. Hebrew practices were called legalistic. The Sabbath was replaced. The feasts were forgotten. The Jewishness of Yeshua and of the early church was buried beneath layers of tradition and theology. The word Jew became controversial. The word Israel became symbolic. And the people of the covenant were sidelined in their own story. Why does this matter? Because the gospel is not a story of replacement. It's a story of fulfillment. Because Jesus didn't start a new religion. He fulfilled the promises of the old. Because the early church didn't reject Israel. It was Israel. If we lose sight of this, we lose sight of the context. We misunderstand the scriptures. We misrepresent the Messiah. And we turn a living Jewish savior into a generic religious symbol. The early church was Jewish. It honored the Torah. It followed the festivals. It believed in the promises made to the fathers. It didn't erase the covenant. It walked in it, renewed by the Spirit. This isn't just a historical footnote. It's a call to return to the roots, to reconnect the gospel with its original soil, to understand Yeshua not as the founder of a new religion, but as the fulfillment of Israel's hope. That's the unfiltered truth. And if your version of Jesus is disconnected from his people, maybe you've made him into someone else.